Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 194, The Wayward Wobbuffet. The episode begins with Ash and the gang continuing their journey to Olivine City, walking through a little rocky area, when suddenly, Team Rocket was watching them. Yeah, that was expected, right? Did you really expect Team Rocket not to be spying? Well, anyways, they proceed to plan, wanting to steal Pikachu, as usual, and they don't waste any time this time, as they were able to come up with a plan after like 10 seconds of thinking, as they plotted behind an oak tree. Team Rocket then put this plan into action as they go up to Ash and the gang, who were discussing how close they were to Olivine City, disguised as two scientists. They proceeded to pull out a device that Ash claimed looked like a small submarine, and Team Rocket requests Ash to test the device for them to see if it worked, claiming that it was indestructible, since it was made from plastic harder than diamond, and that it would severely help any Pokemon trainers, since the job of it, being called the Poképod, was to transport any Pokemon placed inside of it to any other location. So essentially, if you wanted to get your Pokemon somewhere else without having to haul them around, then this machine could supposedly do that. Brock then questions why the scientists, quote-unquote, wanted Ash to test the device anyways, asking if it was broken or something. Even though Team Rocket didn't want to insult themselves by claiming that they had a broken device, they decided to lie and say that it was broken so that they could convince Ash and the gang to give over Pikachu. Sure enough, after hearing that the device was broken, Ash agreed to test it out for them to see if it worked, as he handed over Pikachu, and Jessie put him inside of the machine, causing the Poképod to lock automatically. When Ash saw that Pikachu wasn't being transported, like Team Rocket had suggested would happen, he immediately asked for Pikachu back, stating that the device didn't work, but Jessie and James argued that it did work, it just took time to transport. Ash tried to get Pikachu out himself, but noticed that he was locked in, and questioned why this was, with Team Rocket lying that Pikachu was locked in so that it wouldn't fall out during the transport and get injured. This led Ash to request Team Rocket to unlock the machine so that Pikachu could go free. Now somewhat wary of them, due to them not telling Ash about the lock beforehand. However, Team Rocket refused, clarifying that they had designed the lock to only be opened with a special golden key, which they didn't currently have on them right now. They had apparently left it back at their quote-unquote lab. Ash could smell the lie from a million miles away, and declared that Team Rocket were stealing Pikachu. However, he still didn't believe they were actually Team Rocket, just a random band of thieves. Knowing that they were caught anyways, they wanted to at least go down with Ash and the gang knowing who they were. So, Meowth then popped out from some bushes where he was hiding, because, the scientists couldn't have a talking Meowth. That would have been too suspicious. And Meowth reveals that the two scientists were in fact Team Rocket, as Team Rocket throw off the disguises and do their motto. With their cover blown, James then sends out his Weezing and has it use Smokescreen, blinding Ash and the gang, allowing Team Rocket to run away. Eventually, though, Ash and the gang were able to make their way through the smoke and chase after Team Rocket, leading Jessie to panic that they may successfully get the device containing Pikachu. So, she threw it to her Wobbuffet, which was currently hiding behind a rock. And Wobbuffet almost dropped it, as it certainly wasn't expecting to have a device thrown at it, but it grabs it. Sure enough, Ash and the gang catch up to Team Rocket and demand the Poképod back so that Ash can get back Pikachu, but Jessie claims that they had lost it while they were running and didn't know where it went, obviously not revealing that they had given it to Wobbuffet. Team Rocket didn't have to reveal Wobbuffet though, as Wobbuffet simply dumbly revealed itself, as it didn't know why Jessie had given it the Poképod, so it went out to go question her about it, which obviously revealed him to Ash and the gang in the process. Ash immediately noticed that Wobbuffet had both the Poképod with him and the key to the Poképod, so he ran at Wobbuffet, trying to get the Poképod back, leading Jessie to order Wobbuffet to run away and hide, and not let Ash catch up. Wobbuffet tried to do this, but it was too scared by Ash running towards it that it ended up tripping on a rock, causing him to fall into a nearby river and drop the Poképod into the air, causing it to land in Ash's hands, since he managed to pick it up after it skidded off of the nearby platform that it had landed on. Wobbuffet then floats down the river, unable to stop even as he approaches a waterfall. As for Ash, with the Poképod now in his hands, he tried his best to forcibly open it, but it just would not open. This leads Ash to demand that Team Rocket give him the key, but Team Rocket stated that they weren't lying when they said that they didn't have the key, and explained that Wobbuffet had it around its neck, which Ash remembered seeing the key. And he began to panic a little bit, as he knew that the key was the only way to release Pikachu from the container, so if he didn't have the key, Pikachu would be stuck there forever. Team Rocket then noticed that Wobbuffet was about to go over the waterfall, which made them extremely worried. James and Meowth didn't hide the fact that they were extremely worried for Wobbuffet's safety, but Jessie tried to play it off as her just being afraid that the key would go down with Wobbuffet, stating that they didn't want the key to go down either, because then they could never let Pikachu out of the cage to give to Giovanni. Upon realizing that Pikachu may never be able to get out of the cage if Wobbuffet fell off the waterfall and lost the key, Ash panicked that that would mean that Pikachu would fucking die, since it wouldn't be able to get any food and water in the cage. So, Ash and the gang immediately ran after Wobbuffet to try and stop it from falling. Meowth and Jessie angrily yell at Ash and the gang as they run away, with Meowth claiming that Ash and the gang should still give Pikachu to them, even if the cage couldn't be opened, stating that if Wobbuffet ended up going off of the waterfall and dying, then Team Rocket deserved some compensation, and that compensation should be Pikachu, even if he couldn't get out of the cage. Jessie knew that Ash and the gang obviously wouldn't agree to something like this, so instead proposes a deal that Ash and the gang and Team Rocket would both try and save Wobbuffet, and whoever managed to do so and get the key would be the one to get Pikachu at the end of the day, no matter what. Jessie spent so long thinking of this deal, though, that James pointed out to her that Ash and the gang had already run off a long time ago, and they couldn't hear what she was saying anyways, and added that if Jessie really wanted to find the key first, then they should just hurry the fuck up and go do that. So they proceeded to run off into their Meowth balloon and try and catch up to Wobbuffet, who was still floating towards the waterfall. Team Rocket eventually catches up to Ash and the gang in their Meowth balloon, as Ash and the gang were currently near the waterfall, following the stream. Thanks to Brock's suggestion, stating that if they followed the river to the end of the stream, then they would reach the waterfall that Wobbuffet was approaching. Anyways, upon catching up to Ash and the gang, Jessie makes Ash and the gang a new offer. One that they could actually hear this time. She proposed that if Ash and the gang got back the key, Team Rocket would let them use it to free Pikachu from the cage so that Pikachu wouldn't die of not having food and water, but Team Rocket would still be allowed to keep Pikachu and give it to Giovanni in exchange for this. Essentially, Team Rocket wanted to ensure that even if Ash and the gang managed to get back the key before Team Rocket did, that they would still benefit. Ash and the gang obviously weren't down for this idea, and Ash just declared to his friends that they would simply have to get the key before Team Rocket did, so that Team Rocket couldn't force them to do anything. They pretend to agree to the deal, though, as to not upset Team Rocket. They were having trouble with this, though, as following the stream to the waterfall on foot was much slower than Team Rocket, who was flying over the stream in their Meowth balloon. Meanwhile, as for Wobbuffet himself, he was of course floating towards the waterfall. Much to Team Rocket and Ash and the gang's shock, though, they then saw Wobbuffet go over the waterfall and panicked, thinking that he got injured, but Wobbuffet was completely fine. And he now was just continuing to float downstream after falling down this waterfall. Wobbuffet was actually enjoying this swim, finding it relaxing, as he took the time to look up into the clouds, as he was floating on his back. He sees a cloud that looks like Jessie, causing him to clap with joy, and he only claps and shouts even louder when he then spots the Meowth balloon in the sky with the real Jessie in it. Very happy to see her. However, Wobbuffet's happiness was soon turned into fright, as even though Team Rocket had spotted Wobbuffet down in the stream, they were still up so high, so they couldn't just immediately go down and get him. So this allowed Wobbuffet to crash into a Quagsire, who was also by the stream, and immediately freak out because he was scared of the Quagsire. This fright was unwarranted, though, as the Quagsire saw that Wobbuffet desired to get out of the stream and reunite with Team Rocket, so it pointed left to a nearby forest that was coming up. So Wobbuffet thanks the Quagsire and swims in the direction of the forest, eventually arriving in the forest after climbing out of the water. Wobbuffet waited for Jessie to show up in the forest, but began to get impatient, so proceeded to run around the forest and swing around some vines to pass the time. Ash and the gang and Team Rocket eventually spotted Wobbuffet in the forest. However, they soon lost sight of him, as due to him swinging around on the vines, he had went basically all throughout the forest, and was so far away now that they just couldn't see him. This leads Ash and the gang to go running after the Wobbuffet, so it can get back in their view. However, Ash was so desperate to run that, unlike Brock and Misty, he didn't spot that they were running towards the edge of a cliff, and he falls down the cliff, since he didn't hear Brock's warning, causing Pikachu to shout in panic as Ash drops his cage on the ground when he falls, although he quickly picks it up and apologizes to Pikachu. Misty and Brock then climb down the cliff, like Ash should have done instead of, running off, and they proceed to chase after Wobbuffet some more. Team Rocket, on the other hand, was still up in the sky in their Meowth balloon, and worried that Ash and the gang would actually be able to locate Wobbuffet first, since they were already down on the ground by the forest. So Team Rocket proceeded to land their Meowth balloon down the cliff, landing right next to Ash and the gang. Both Ash and the gang and Team Rocket then try and look for Wobbuffet, and the key for that matter, after realizing that neither of them had found Wobbuffet yet. And eventually, they come out of the forest and onto a nearby road, where they actually spot Wobbuffet, who was hanging from a nearby branch. Essentially, what had happened was Wobbuffet went a little too crazy while swinging on some vines, to the point where he had flew out of the forest onto the road area, but managed to grasp on to the last remaining tree in the forest, or at least a branch of it. When Wobbuffet spots Jessie, he immediately gets excited and lets go of the branch that he was hanging off of, so that he could get back down to the ground and go run up to Jessie. However, since he was right on the edge of the forest, right by the road, coincidentally, a truck came driving by, and Wobbuffet landed on the moving truck as opposed to the road. Jessie had tried to warn Wobbuffet to not let go of the branch, but Wobbuffet was just too excited, man. In fact, Wobbuffet was still excited, despite being scared of the moving truck and knowing that he could fall off at any second. Yeah, he was still just so excited to see Jessie, though, that he took one of his arms off of the truck instead of holding on with both arms and saluted Jessie. He quickly stopped this, though, as he almost went flying off of the truck, and made sure to hang on for dear life from now on. Just then, several police cars appear to be chasing the car that Wobbuffet was on, insinuating that the driver of the truck was a criminal or some shit. When Team Rocket spot the police, they instantly decide to abandon Wobbuffet and run the fuck away, back into the forest, not wanting to be arrested. The police, including Officer Jenny, who was leading the chase, were not at all concerned by Team Rocket, though. They were very much focused on the truck and the road in front of them. So that's why Officer Jenny quickly stopped in her tracks when she noticed that Ash and the gang had ran up in front of the police cars, cutting them off. Officer Jenny questions why Ash and the gang would do something so reckless, demanding them to get out of the way so that she could continue the chase. Ash and the gang then clarify that they wanted to help Officer Jenny with the chase, stating that they wanted to get the Wobbuffet that was on top of the truck. Hearing this, Officer Jenny invites Ash and the gang into her cop car, allowing them to join the pursuit of the truck. Brock then questioned why the police were going after the truck in the first place, leading Officer Jenny to reveal that the truck was being driven by a master thief named Goneth, who stole a whole bunch of jewelry and gold all the time. Brock recognized the name of the thief and added that he always managed to break into the bank vaults with this gold and jewelry by using his golem. Officer Jenny was impressed by Brock's knowledge, so Brock, of course, took the opportunity to flirt with Officer Jenny, stating that even if Garnet escaped, Officer Jenny could have him instead, with Misty dragging him away by the ear as far as she could since they were in a truck, stating that Officer Jenny already had enough problems, she didn't need Brock. Jenny then radioed all of the other cops, instructing them to blockade a nearby bridge that the truck was heading towards so that they could stop Garnet in his tracks. Garnet was unaware of this and was trying to fool the cops and shake them off by trying to turn onto other nearby roads, only to find out that all of these roads were severely unstable and not good for the truck. It could fucking pop his tires because they were so rocky and shit, so he decides to just stick on the main path. Obviously, this wouldn't work in his favor, as he was therefore heading straight for the bridge that had the blockade set up. All of the turning that he did, trying to get onto the different paths, also didn't work in his favor either, as it had caused Wobbuffet to fall off the roof of the truck as he started to panic and fall onto the windshield. This leads Garnet to try and get Wobbuffet off of the windshield by using the windshield wipers, but Wobbuffet manages to hang on, and due to Garnet's view being blocked by Wobbuffet and him being distracted trying to use the windshield wipers, he ends up driving straight into the barricade. However, he was able to go through the barricade as he got the idea to speed up, breaking through the barricade and crushing several cop cars in the process. This allows Garnet to cross the bridge and go into the city, so this in turn leads Officer Jenny to block off all avenues of escape in the city and raise all other bridges in an attempt to trap Garnet so that he couldn't escape. This strategy thankfully works, as Garnet stops his truck as he spotted a bridge moving up right as he was about to cross it, forcing him to stop, allowing Ash and the gang and the cops to catch up and surround him. Team Rocket then return and also surround Garnet, with Team Rocket realizing that they cared about Wobbuffet enough to risk their potential freedom and being caught by the cops. With Garnet surrounded from all sides, Officer Jenny taunted him that his jig was finally up. However, Garnet just laughed, as he had a trick up his sleeve this whole time, being a golem hot air balloon inside of his truck, which released when he opened up the container on the back of it. Garnet then quickly exits his truck and goes into his balloon, only to find Wobbuffet inside, as since the balloon had come out from the back of the truck, which Wobbuffet was holding onto, Wobbuffet in turn fell into the balloon. Garnet tries multiple things to get Wobbuffet out of the balloon, such as hitting him or trying to throw him out, but this just backfires on him immensely, as Wobbuffet uses counter to send Garnet flying out of the balloon and coincidentally right next to the police officers, leading 6 police officers to pile on top of Garnet to prevent him from escaping. Jessie cheers at the fact that Wobbuffet finally did something useful, but her happiness is then interrupted as she noticed that even with Garnet gone, the golem balloon was still floating away with Wobbuffet still inside. So Jessie quickly took action and tried to aim Wobbuffet's Pokeball at it to recall it. But despite Team Rocket getting as close to the golem balloon as they could in their Meowth balloon, the golem balloon was moving too wildly in the wind, so all of the recall beams that Jessie sent out missed, missing twice. To add insult to injury, the wind then blew Team Rocket's Meowth balloon into a nearby tower, which popped a hole in it. This leads Jessie to angrily order Meowth to get the fuck on top of the balloon and try and cover the hole, and so he crawls out onto the top of the balloon and does manage to cover it, although it's obviously very difficult, since he's just using his hands. Just then, the wind blew the golem balloon in the same direction as the Meowth balloon, causing Wobbuffet to spot Jessie, so he tried to leap onto the Meowth balloon to get to her, which in turn caused yet another hole in the Meowth balloon. This hole was enough to cause the entire Meowth balloon to deflate, which sent Team Rocket blasting off in one direction and Wobbuffet in another direction. After noticing that Wobbuffet was truly gone now, Ash decided that he had to at least try and get Pikachu out without the key, so he requested some of the cops to give him a hammer, and somehow one of the cops actually had one, so he tried to use the hammer to break open the cage, but just as Team Rocket had said, the cage actually was indestructible, much to Ash's dismay, confirming that the key would be needed to save Pikachu. Just then, in a Deus Ex Machina moment though, Ash then spots Wobbuffet being blasted off in the sky. He still hadn't landed anywhere yet. Although, when he heard Wobbuffet scream for his life, he realized that Wobbuffet was heading straight for another river, and he didn't want to risk Wobbuffet floating down the stream again and getting lost, so he sent out his Chikorita, and instructed it to use Vine Whip to grab Wobbuffet from the sky before it fell into the river. And Ash made sure to hold on to Chikorita, so that way, if Wobbuffet was falling down, then it wouldn't pull Chikorita with it. Despite this though, Chikorita still wasn't able to fully grasp onto Wobbuffet, since Wobbuffet was too heavy, so Chikorita only managed to pull Wobbuffet away from the river, and it instead got dropped onto a nearby road, as it was then picked up by a truck. Yet again. This truck then drives across the bridge and gets startled as Wobbuffet had landed on top of it, causing the truck to swerve into the river below the bridge, and Wobbuffet to therefore land in a speedboat in the river that was currently being drove across the river. However, when Wobbuffet landed in the boat, he subsequently knocked the driver out of the boat and landed inside the driver's seat himself. Wobbuffet got knocked out from all of these collisions, but since he had landed in the driver's seat, his foot was still on the pedal, so even though he was knocked out and unaware that he was driving, the boat was therefore still speeding, leading Ash and the gang to run across the bridge that Wobbuffet had just fallen off of in an attempt to catch up to the speedboat and get close enough so they could jump down from the bridge into it. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had blasted off not far from the bridge and were crying, actually sad, about how they had seemingly lost Wobbuffet for good this time, as now they had no clue where he was. Jessie was so sad that she even began to imitate Wobbuffet's face, missing it. Just then, though, they looked over by the bridge they had landed at and spotted Wobbuffet in the speedboat and immediately began to chase after it, catching up to Ash and the gang in the process, who were also still chasing after it. Therefore, a race was now on. Who was going to get to Wobbuffet first, Team Rocket or Ash and the gang? Anyways, Jessie then got the same idea to try and jump into the boat to rescue Wobbuffet before Ash and the gang did. So therefore, she ordered Wobbuffet to step on the brakes and stop the boat from moving so that it'd be easier to jump into. However, she then realized that Wobbuffet was unconscious, so he couldn't do anything. This leads Jessie to decide to take a risk and jump into the moving speedboat, leading Ash to follow. It was a close call, but both Jessie and Ash made it into the boat, leading Jessie to try and hit Ash into the water, although she failed. Why did Jessie fail, you may ask? Well, the impact of Jessie and Ash falling into the boat had caused Wobbuffet to regain consciousness yet again, coincidentally holding the boat's steering wheel as soon as he woke up, and since he was startled when he woke up, he jolted back and accidentally pulled off the steering wheel. Jessie then orders Wobbuffet to pull the boat's throttle stick back to slow the boat down and stop it. However, Wobbuffet unfortunately pushes it the wrong way, instead speeding up the boat, and he pushes it so hard that he breaks off the entire throttle stick, causing the boat to go even faster, now with no way of stopping it. Ash and Jessie then look up onto the bridge in order to ask Brock and Misty and James and Meowth respectively what they should do, because they were heading straight for a Lapras boat at this point, with Wobbuffet having no way to stop the boat. But when they looked up onto the bridge, they also spotted that Gonith had unfortunately managed to break away from the cops and escape on one of the cops' motorbikes. Jessie and Ash didn't care about Gonith right now though, as the Lapras boat they were heading towards was of more of their concern. Thankfully, somewhat thankfully, anyways, they didn't crash into the Lapras boat, as the Lapras boat happened to have a little ramp on it that was used to get inside of it, and the speedboat bounced off of this ramp and got launched into the air. In the process, the boat flew over the Lapras boat, therefore not crashing into it, but Wobbuffet also went flying out of the boat and coincidentally landed on Gonith's motorcycle as he was escaping, causing Gonith to get extremely fucking angry. Wobbuffet wasn't fazed by Gonith's anger though, as it was too preoccupied with watching the speeding boat with Ash and Jessie still on it, as it was now heading towards a brick wall. Thankfully, Ash got the idea to send out his Totodile and have it use water gun against the wall that they were about to crash into, and the water gun managed to severely soften the crash, meaning that the boat just barely touched the wall and it was barely even damaged. Yay! As Ash thanked Totodile for its help, causing Totodile to dance around happily. He then spotted a ladder attached to the brick wall and climbed up it with Jessie in order to get back onto land, where they then ran back to the bridge where Brock, Misty, James, and Meowth were. Oh yeah, by the way, Brock was holding Pikachu's cage when Ash jumped into the boat, so yeah, Pikachu hadn't gone anywhere, guys. But anyways, as soon as Jessie and Ash reunite with the others, Jessie asked them if they had seen Wobbuffet, as she didn't know where it had ended up. Just then, though, Officer Jenny and some other cops ran up to Ash and the gang and Team Rocket and informed them that Gonith had escaped on one of their motorcycles. So several other police officers had chased him to an abandoned building that he rode to and stated that they spotted Wobbuffet on the motorcycle with him. Jenny then added that the cops who had arrived at the abandoned building to corner Gonith had informed her that Gonith had tried to make a deal with them, having taken Wobbuffet as hostage and claiming that he would only give Wobbuffet back if the cops gave him a helicopter that he could escape in. Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny and the cops then decided to join the other cops at the abandoned building so that they could potentially talk to Gonith and try and convince him to give back Wobbuffet. And as for Team Rocket, they sneak off, as they thought that Ash and the gang and the cops were going to try to agree to Gonith's deal, and therefore they would lose Wobbuffet. So they essentially wanted to do a plan of their own and try and stop Gonith, unrelated to what the cops and Ash and the gang were going to do. So that's why they decided to go there by themselves. What was this plan that Team Rocket had, you may ask? Well, it was Jessie's idea, and Meowth and James really liked it. And I'm sure you can guess what it was. It was a whole trap idea. Anyways, when Officer Jenny, all of the other cops, and Ash and the gang arrived at the abandoned building, Officer Jenny was originally just going to charge in through the front entrance, but Ash and the gang got the idea to have the three of them sneak in the back of the building in order to catch Gonith off guard. So, Ash and the gang do this, without the rest of the cops, as to not make too much noise. However, Team Rocket had already arrived and dug a hole, which they were crawling through to get inside the building. Essentially, they had dug a hole underground and were crawling from underground into the building. Ash and the gang spot this hole that Team Rocket had dug when they come around the back, and they proceed to go in it as well. But since Team Rocket had went through the hole way before them, they arrived first. And as soon as they arrived, they spotted none other than Gonith, who was scolding the Wobbuffet due to it being annoying, stating that all he wanted to do was wait quietly in peace, waiting for the cops to accept his offer. However, Gonith obviously wouldn't be able to wait in peace, not just because of the Wobbuffet, but because Team Rocket was there now, who immediately confronted him, doing their motto. Ash and the gang then showed up as well, but upon seeing Team Rocket talking with Gonith, they proceeded to hide behind a few objects in the room, thankfully not being spotted. This allowed Team Rocket to continue talking to Gonith, telling him that he didn't need a helicopter to escape. Instead, he could use the hole that Team Rocket had used to dig into this place, which led out away into the bridge, so that Gonith could essentially use the hole, crawl through it, and arrive at the bridge where the cops wouldn't be able to catch up to him. But Gonith retorted that he wanted to escape in a helicopter. That's the whole reason why he decided to hole himself up in this building in the first place. Like, he could have just escaped on his motorcycle, but no, he wanted to escape on a helicopter, so that's why he was trying to make this deal with the cops in the first place. Team Rocket rebuttals that using their awesome escape tunnel would be even better, but explained that now that Gonith had refused to use the tunnel originally, if he decided to change his mind, he would now have to give Team Rocket something in exchange, being their Wobbuffet. Yes, that's right, that was Jessie's entire plan here. She expected Gonith to deny using their escape, and now she was going to try and blackmail him into using it, but he could only use it if he gave back Wobbuffet. This just led Gonith to growl in anger, stating that although he didn't like Wobbuffet, If he wasn't going to get a helicopter to escape from, then he wasn't willing to give up Wobbuffet either, as he at least believed that he could sell Wobbuffet for some money or something, so he wanted to keep Wobbuffet for himself. Gaunus soon realized, though, that the cops probably weren't going to give him a helicopter, so he had to escape somehow. So he decided to change his mind and use the tunnels after all that Team Rocket had dug, but he still wasn't willing to give up Wobbuffet, so he decided to send out his golem and have it attack Team Rocket. Specifically, Gaunus orders his golem to use tackle. However, before it can get the tackle off, Ash and the gang then come out from hiding, as Ash sends out his Totodile and has it use water gun on the golem. This wasn't because he wanted to save Team Rocket by any means, simply just because he wanted to stop Gaunus from escaping. And also, he didn't want Gaunus to escape with Wobbuffet, as that would mean he would have no way of getting the key to rescue Pikachu. Thinking Golem was down, Ash demands that Gaunus release Wobbuffet. However, Golem was not down, and Gaunus simply ordered it to use Double Team, creating 3 copies of itself. All of the Golems then use Dynamic Punch on Totodile, and despite Totodile having the type advantage, this Dynamic Punch just does absolutely insane damage to it, causing it to fall to the ground, unable to defend itself. Gaunus then ordered his Golem to finish off Totodile with a tackle attack, but thankfully, Totodile was just barely able to get up, and it ran behind Wobbuffet, so Wobbuffet could shield it. This, of course, causes the Golem to get angry and head towards Wobbuffet in an attempt to get Totodile, but Wobbuffet manages to stop the Golem from reaching the Totodile by using a counter, which sends Golem flying, as well as breaks the ropes that Gaunus had captured Wobbuffet in. As Golem goes flying, he flies straight into Gaunus, sending Golem and Gaunus flying out of the building as they crash into a wall, and once they were out of the building, they are immediately piled upon by Officer Jenny and several other cops and arrested. Ash congratulates Totodile on using Wobbuffet to its advantage, and just using all of its skills in general, causing Totodile to dance in happiness at Ash's praise. Seeing that Ash and Totodile were distracted with their happiness, Team Rocket take the opportunity to grab Wobbuffet and escape, using the tunnel that they had dug. Ash and Totodile then spot that Team Rocket had escaped, and immediately go chasing after them, going through the hole as well, wanting to get the key from Wobbuffet. However, since Team Rocket had escaped first, they were well ahead of Ash and the gang, and proceeded to escape in not the Meowth balloon this time, as that was still fucked, but an entirely new balloon that they had somehow made, being a Wobbuffet balloon. When Ash and Totodile catch up to Team Rocket, they demand that Team Rocket give them the key, leading Jesse to call Wobbuffet into his Pokeball to give him a rest from everything that happened today, stating that now that Wobbuffet was in his Pokeball, there was no way that Ash and the gang would be able to get the key, and began to fly away in their Wobbuffet balloon, taunting that the only way that they would consider giving Ash the key was if he was able to catch up to them, just wanting an excuse to use their new Wobbuffet balloon. They weren't planning to give back the key regardless. Unfortunately for Team Rocket though, Wobbuffet then forcibly popped out of its Pokeball, not wanting a rest, and wanting to witness the action itself, which made Team Rocket realize that Ash could now grab the key somehow, since Wobbuffet was out of its Pokeball. Ash realized this as well, and took the chance to send out his Noctowl and have it use Peck on the Wobbuffet balloon, popping it. As the balloon begins to crash down, it shakes violently, causing Wobbuffet to drop the key. Each of the members of Team Rocket try to individually grab it before it falls to the ground, but it's to no avail as the key does fall to the ground, allowing Ash to catch it and then use it on Pikachu's cage, finally freeing him after all this time. A frustrated Team Rocket knew that their time was now up, as Ash then commanded Pikachu to use Thunderbolt now that he was free, sending Team Rocket blasting off before they could even crash to the ground. Ash congratulates Pikachu on a job well done, as Officer Jenny and the rest of the cops then arrive, as Officer Jenny salutes Ash and the gang, thanking them for their assistance with Gaunus' arrest, also congratulating Ash on getting back Pikachu. Ash thanks Jenny for letting him and his friends help in the first place, as they then say their goodbyes to Jenny and the cops and continue on their journey to Olivine City. The episode then ends with one last scene from Team Rocket, who had blasted off onto a bridge. However, Wobbuffet had landed safely on top of the bridge, while Jesse, James, and Meowth had landed close to the water, hanging on to the bridge's poles. They were struggling to hang on, so they begged Wobbuffet to help rescue them and pull them up to the top of the bridge, stating that they helped Wobbuffet, so Wobbuffet should help them. But Wobbuffet simply ignored them, as it was just trying to relax after its hard day, likely cementing Jesse's hatred for Wobbuffet.